Alrighty. Hello and welcome everybody to the Skills Kickstart session on EDI Basics with our two presenters today being Nick and Pat. We will go ahead and get started here in just a minute just to let some people join in and get settled. So we will be starting here very soon. With that, during the webinar, if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the Q&A or the chat, and we'd be happy to answer them throughout the webinar. We do have some time at the end as well for some Q&A questions, so please don't hesitate to reach out. Like I said, we will get started here in just a few seconds. Give people a chance to join in. And it actually looks like we got quite a few people in here already. So let's just go ahead and get started. For those of you who did just join, this is the EDI Basics Skills Kickstart session with our presenters Nick and Pat. With that, go ahead and take it away, guys.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the Skills Kickstart. It's EDI Basics. We'll be talking about how to manage your EDI in Encompass. I am Patrick Rose, support engineer here at Encompass Technologies.
I am Nick Bedeker, EDI manager here at Encompass Technologies.
All right. So here's what we'll be talking about today. We'll start with what is EDI and why does it matter? Why does it matter for your business? We'll dive into some definitions and all the different EDI document types to get you aware of. We'll do a brief jaunt into indirect EDI and what that is here at Encompass, and then kind of diving into specifically EDI from the Encompass lens. How do you initiate a new setup? How do you engage our EDI team to help you through the process of setting up new setups with new trading partners? And then we'll give you some tips and tricks to have a successful EDI moving forward, and then finishing up with some troubleshooting and how to resend EDI files, and then we'll close it up with some final thoughts. So what is EDI? In the most simplest sense, it is an acronym that stands for Electronic Data Interchange. It's the exchanging of business documents between companies, and these documents are standardized. There's an industry standard, and which makes it very easy to communicate across different types of organizations. How does EDI benefit your business? These are the obvious ones. There's a handful of other ways as well, but the obvious ones here are efficiency and speed, right? EDI removes the paper part of a business, so transactions are processed automatically. Saving on paper, printing, and physical storage space, you save costs as well. Additionally, you kind of remove the possible errors from manual entry, right? Everything is automated, files are flowing, so human error is less of a factor here. Enhanced accuracy and compliance. So automated data exchange helps ensure accuracy. It reduces rework and can aid in meeting compliance standards for your retailers as well. And then all of that all kind of works together to help kind of optimize your inventory management and forecasting, right? Real-time data flowing back and forth means you know current inventory levels. This prevents out of stocks and overstocks in your business. Some terminology that we will be using pretty heavily in this presentation here. These first three are Encompass tables, and you might be familiar with them already, but you can navigate to these tables using your search bar when you are in your Encompass site. The first one is exchange configuration. The analogy here is that this can be thought of as the switchboard. This kind of it holds all the rules for where files go, how they're interpreted, and so on and so forth. The other table is the exchange task. Exchange tasks live under exchange configurations. The analog here is that these are the files themselves. So inbound or outbound, exchange tasks kind of live under exchange configurations. And so if you ever need to crack open a file to view what's in it, you would head to that exchange task there. Exchange map. This is the analog here is a translator. So this tells the system, either for inbound files, it tells the system, how do we translate this into Encompass data language? And for outbound files, the map will translate it into the language so that your trading partner can ingest it. The maps here are developed and maintained by our Encompass EDI team. So we have a vast collection of maps currently with all our integrations with various trading partners, and we can hit on that in another slide. But each time a new map is needed, it goes through the process of flowing through our EDI team to build that map and testing with the trading partner. And we'll hit on all that a little more later in the presentation, but that's what an exchange map does. Last one here is trading partner, which I've already used the word a few times, but this is essentially the person or the entity that you are trading files with, right? So this could be a retailer, it could be a middleman, but it is the entity that files are being traded with. On that, the trading partners, we currently have 250 plus trading partners and always growing, right? These is just a hodgepodge list of, or hodgepodge image of some of our more popular trading partners that we do business with. And that list is ever growing. So with that terminology, I'm going to hand it over to Nick to kind of talk about the different documents and file types.
All right. Thank you, Pat. Yes, let's do a little bit of a deep dive in the types of EDI documents, and we'll differentiate between a file format and a file type. So file types is something we're probably all very familiar with, right? We have a text document, a TXT, that's a file type, XLS, file type, right? It's a spreadsheet file. Now, within those file types, there are different types of file formats. One of the most commonly used one is what's known as the X12 or the ANSI X12. That is the standardized format that's used across the United States. Outside of the United States, they have different file formats, but within the US, we use the X12 file format. Now, that file format can come in different file types. You could see a X12 come in a .txt file type. But the structure of the file format will always be the same. It'll have the same transaction sets, the same segments, the same elements. And we use that so that way we can standardize the EDI implementation process. If one trading partner uses X12, we can also use X12 and make translation of documents much simpler. And X12s are used primarily with direct connections. So when you're trading files directly with, say, Walmart, both parties will use the X12 file format. Now, there are other types of file formats that are used in EDI, really specific to Encompass customers. One of them is the DAT file, .dat. That's used by our Anheuser-Busch distributors. The overall process is known as OrderBud, used to be called BudEC, but OrderBud uses that .dat file. It's a different file format than X12. Similarly, we have Molson Coors distributors. Those files go through OpenText, GXS being the network those files flow through. And that file type is known as that file format is known as the UFF, or the Universal Flat File, or Universal File Format. Others types of file formats include the XML. That is a type of file document that's used to translate between one type of software and another. And the CSV, the comma separated values. Again, that's similar to a spreadsheet type of document. Let's talk more specifically about different types of EDI documents. One of the most commonly traded ones that you guys are probably very familiar with is the 850. That is the purchase order document. That is usually an inbound document. If you're receiving your purchase orders from a retailer, let's say 7-Eleven, the file will originate in 7-Eleven software. It'll then be sent to your site, translated from 7-Eleven software into Encompass software. And then we'll extract out all the invoice data from that file and generate an invoice based on that 850 file. And that processing happens every 30 minutes. Every 30 minutes, the process exchange tasks API executes and imports that 850 PO file. A similar file is the 875. This is a purchase order document that's used by grocery chains. Publix is a big user of this type of document. And really the only difference between the 850 and the 875 is the 875 provides more product level data. It gives you more product descriptions, more product dimensions than a standard 850 purchase order would have. And then a related document is the 855. Now that's the purchase order acknowledgement. That is a file that usually would go outbound from your site. So you would receive a purchase order from, let's say, 7-Eleven. That purchase order file is imported and processed on your site. An invoice is generated. Then we will return an 855 purchase order acknowledgement to 7-Eleven to tell them the status of that invoice. Perhaps there's a product that was discontinued, out of code, they weren't allocated to receive that product. And when we return an 855 to that trading partner, we can tell them that much. We can say, hey, your invoice was received. However, these products were not added to the invoice for X, Y, and Z reason. Another type of document are pre-delivery documents. As the name implies, these are EDI documents that are sent before delivery of product. One that's very commonly traded is the 856, the advanced shipment notice. If you deliver any product to Walmart, you're probably utilizing the 856 ASN document. This is an outbound document. So as your warehouse workers are picking those products, fulfilling those orders, loading those pallets, once those pallets are loaded, as you can see, their invoice load sheet equals loaded. So that's one of the conditions that need to be met in order for the 856 ASN to send. You load your pallet, that triggers the system to send that 856 ASN to the trading partner, letting them know, hey, be prepared, we're going to be delivering this product here soon. The ASN also sends pallet level data, meaning not only will it send information about the products on the invoice, but it also sends pallet barcodes, pallet dimensions. So it is a very powerful and very complex EDI file. In the similar vein, we have the 894 pre-delivery notice. So unlike the 856, the 894 sends only invoice level data. So it does not send any pallet specific data, just sends invoice data, product level data. And just like the 856, that invoice's load sheet needs to be in loaded status in order for that file to send. Another condition that's really specific to the pre-delivery file are the system settings we see at the bottom here. So system setting 253 and 254. This controls ultimately when your pre-delivery files are set. In this example, pre-delivery files would only be sent once a day at 11 p.m. You load all your pallets, you get all your pallets loaded, ready for delivery at 11 p.m. The system checks all of your loaded invoices and sends your pre-delivery files at that point. Any file that's loaded after 11 p.m. won't be sent, and that time frame can be adjusted on each individual customer site. Next up, we have post-delivery. So you've made your delivery, the truck comes back to the warehouse, the invoice load sheet goes from returned and then to balanced. Once it hits the balance status, that will allow for the 810 post-delivery invoice to be sent. As the name implies, this is sent after delivery. This is generally an outbound document. This will process about every 15 minutes. Every time generate outbound EDI invoice API executes, this document will be sent. And again, your invoices load sheet needs to be at least in balanced or verified status in order for an 810 post-delivery document to be sent. Similar to an 810 is the payment request file. There's an important distinction to be made between the 810 post-delivery and the 810 payment request. The payment request file is a file that the recipient can pay directly off of. So it's a little bit more of a powerful file. Because the recipient can pay directly off of this file, we have additional conditions that need to be met in order for a payment request file to be sent. One of them is the invoices load sheet needs to be in verified status. So it can't just be in balance, it needs to be in verified status. There also needs to be invoice trans history, right? So there has to be actual products that were delivered. And the invoices balance needs to be debit or credit, right? Greater than or less than 0. As long as there's an open balance of some kind and that invoice has trans history, we will send that payment request file. In the similar vein of those other two, we have the 880 grocery invoice. So just like you might receive an 875 purchase order from Publix, you would then, instead of returning the standard 810, you would instead return an 880 grocery invoice. So it's very similar to the 810 post delivery. It has the same conditions that need to be met in order for the 880 to be sent. However, just like the 875, the 880 sends a lot more product level data, a lot more product descriptions in the 880 grocery invoice document. Let's also talk about some other really powerful EDI documents. One of them is the 820 remittance. So this is probably the most powerful document, at least the document that will save you the most time. And that would be the remittance document. That is an inbound document received from a trading partner. Again, that's processed every time process exchange task API executes. And what the remittance document does is it balances your invoice. So let's say 7-Eleven pays an invoice, that money actually goes into your business's bank account. 7-Eleven will then send this remittance file behind it to say, hey, we've paid this invoice. We receive the remittance file into your system. We look for the invoice number in the file, and then we pay based on the receipt in the file and balance that invoice. So you no longer have to manually apply payments. You don't have to worry about incorrectly applying payments or failing to apply payments at all. The remittance document automates that entire process for you. We have the EFT, the electronic fund transfer. This is an outbound document, and this is a document that'll trigger payments, right? As the name implies, you send this payment, you send this file out, and it will work to transfer funds from one bank account to another as a process of paying an invoice or paying a purchase. Similar to this is the ACH file or the NACHA file. That's automated clearinghouse. And that's just a fancy term to say, hey, this is a banking file. So this file will go to your banking institution and it will transfer funds from one account to another. This could be used to receive payments from your retailers, right, to pay invoices. ACH files can also be used to pay purchases to your vendors as well. So this is a powerful type of file that could be used both on the AP and the AR side of your business.
And
Let's talk a
Nick,
little bit. Yes,
yeah, so
question?
it looks like we did get a question that came in a little earlier. So is there a standardized process to alert assigned users when a new PO is received via EDI? Or is that something where an alert has to be built for each new trading partner configuration?
That would be an alert process. Now you can create an alert based on, a new invoice being generated for a customer, for an AR account. Alerts can be created in a variety of different ways, but creating the alert would be the answer to that question.
Great. Thank you.
You got it. Let's talk a little bit about indirect EDI. Now, there's a lot of words here, so we'll just summarize it. And what this is basically telling us is that depending on your business, the type of products your business distributes, that will change how we're going to trade documents, or I should say, who we're going to trade EDI documents with. Say, for example, you're an Anheuser-Busch distributor. We would trade files through Anheuser-Busch's OrderBud platform, formerly known as BudEC. So instead of being able to send files directly to, say, Walmart, right, we create this direct connection between your business's site and Walmart, and we trade those files directly between the two parties as an X12 file format. If you're an Anheuser-Busch distributor, what happens instead is we take that file, we put it in that DAT file format, DAT, and we send it to OrderBud first. OrderBud takes that file, processes it, translates it again into X12 format, and then sends that file along to the trading partner. So you think of it when we say by indirect EDI, we mean essentially there's a middleman in between your business and the trading partner, and it provides value, right? You might have heard of a VAN or value-added network. It's similar vein there. If you're a Molson Coors distributor, right, it goes through OpenText GXS, right, that Miller UFF file format. You can see in the list here, based on your cohort, based on the types of products your business distributes, it'll change actually who we directly trade EDI documents with, right? If you're a Pepsi bottler, you're going to go through PBEX. If you're a Coca-Cola bottler, you're going to go through OpenText CIS, so on and so forth. Now, there are some categories here like wine and spirits and craft beer where it is a direct trading partnership. Now, there are pros and cons to being direct versus not direct. There really is no wrong answer here. We just wanted to describe to you how files are traded depending on the types of products that your business distributes.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Now we're going to transition a little bit from what we were talking about as kind of general EDI, which can be all the things we talked about apply to any business, any ERP, any RAS system you use. But now we're going to shift to EDI specifically through the Encompass lens here.
All right. Over the past couple months, the Encompass EDI team has developed a new workflow for initiating a new EDI setup. Say, for example, you receive an email from 7-Eleven saying, hey, we have a new 7-Eleven location that you're going to be servicing, and we need to get you guys set up for EDI, right? You might see the terminology like 850, 810, 820 thrown around. What do you do in that case, right? You have this email. What are your next steps? We try to make this workflow as efficient and seamless as possible. What you'll do is you'll navigate to your Encompass customer portal. You'll find in the bottom right-hand corner the Get Professional Services Help. In that section there'll be a link where you create a new EDI implementation service request. That'll take you to a new form that we have where we'll ask you for what we call the requirements for an EDI implementation. Step like who is the trading partner, right? What is their contact information? What's the network those files are going to be traded in? What product groups are going to be traded. A big initiative right now for Target, for example, is non-alcohol products, right? You can no longer get those paid through fintech. So many people have gotten these emails from Target saying, hey, we now need you guys to send non-alcohol invoices directly to us. This is the process you'll follow, right? You'll go to your customer portal, you'll click the link, you'll submit an implementation request that'll generate a task, and then that will inform the EDI team that this implementation service request has been activated, and we will then send it to our development team to complete configuration and testing.
Nick, can you talk a little bit about the turnaround time for these types of implementation requests?
Absolutely. If a exchange map already exists, say, for example, it's 7-Eleven, right? We have a long-standing relationship with 7-Eleven. If no new development is needed, we can have an implementation done in about 5 to 10 business days, depending on how quickly the trading partner responds. If, though, this is a new partner integration, for example, we just completed a big one with Sazerac, right, supplier. So when that project first kicked off, we had all these new map translations we had to develop. And if we have to develop new map translation, that'll effectively double the implementation time from about 5 to 10 business days to about 10 to 20 business days.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. All right. So I'll talk a little bit about how to maintain successful EDI in Encompass here. So good data in, good data out. The primary tables, aside from those exchange configuration and exchange task tables, a lot of EDI pulls from your products table and your customers table. So it's important to keep those tables clean and accurate. This includes all the metadata and fields that are in these tables. So for products, you got IDs, UPCs, supplier product numbers, and even package dimensions are needed to have successful, robust EDI exchanges. Also utilizing Encompass product controls and pricing features. So in the product control side, you've got the territorial-based product controls like suppliers areas and brand families areas. You also have the license type of product controls, which live in the product groups. So making sure those are maintained. And if a customer can buy a product or can't buy a product, make sure that is configured based on product controls, and your EDI will flow much more seamlessly there. On the customer side, very similarly, the fields that matter there are customer ID, chain store number, DUNS number, and global location number, among others. But those are just the key ones to keep in mind as you are selling new products to new accounts.
I did see a question was asked. I want to touch on that real quick. You can actually go to the next slide there, Pat, but a
Sure.
question was asked, what's the cost to set up a new configuration through the EDI professional services? Or is it just covered by EDI usage fees? The latter is the answer here. There is no current cost for EDI implementation. If customization is required, while rare, there would be some costs there, but for a standard EDI implementation, there is no setup costs. The only time you're charged is when documents are actually being traded. There's that document processing fee, and we'll actually touch on that here in a moment. I want to also discuss a couple really important tables and fields that are also important for the fundamentals of EDI success. Really, really big one, really important are AR accounts. AR accounts are the primary means by which we filter outbound EDI data. Say, for example, you have an 810 exchange configuration and you need to send invoices to 7-Eleven. How you're going to tell that configuration to send only 7-Eleven invoices is by adding that 7-Eleven AR account as a subtable filter to that exchange configuration. Now you've told that configuration, hey, ignore all other invoices except for the invoices under that specific AR account. You can also drill down further. There are additional filters that are not covered in this slide, but stuff like product groups. Say, for example, we talked about Target earlier. Target says, hey, only send me non-alcohol invoices. So on your Target 810 exchange configuration, you would add the Target AR account. You would also add your non-alcohol product group. So now you've told that configuration only send Target NA invoices through that exchange configuration. Another really important table to EDI success is split invoicing, right? This is very common. Many retailers, Walmart as an example, will say, hey, when you send us an invoice, you need to have one invoice that's just alcohol and another invoice that's non-alcohol, right? We cannot mix those products together on the same invoice. You'll use split invoicing to make that happen. You'll create one split invoice record using your alcohol product group and maybe assign out your alcohol vendor number to that split invoice. You have another split invoice where you have your non-alcohol product group and your non-alcohol vendor number. That way, when we generate our invoices and we send EDI data, we've clearly differentiated between our alcohol and non-alcohol products. Within the split invoicing table, some other really important fields are just talked about vendor number, distributors, vendor DUNS. So the DUNS number, and DUNS numbers, by the way, are assigned by a company called Dun& and Bradstreet. So if you ever want to know what your business's DUNS number is or another business's DUNS number, you can go to dunandbradstreet.com and you can actually look up that business to see what their DUNS number is. Or let's say, for example, your business hasn't been assigned a DUNS number. Again, this is just a 9-digit value that's used to ID your business. You can contact Dun& and Bradstreet and they will assign you a unique DUNS number value. Normally, the DUNS number lives on your locations table. So locations.duns. Essentially, that's saying, hey, this specific location, this is the ID for that location. However, there are some times where the trading partner, and let's say Kroger in this case, will say, hey, we're not going to use your standard DUNS number. We're instead going to assign you your own DUNS number that's specific to Kroger. So instead of updating locations.duns, that would impact your entire business, you can then instead create a split invoice record, assign that DUNS number to distributor vendor DUNS. So that DUNS only applies to, let's say, Kroger in that case. Retailer department number is another big one, used a lot by Walmart to differentiate between their non-alcohol department and their alcohol department. And then the EDI price group code used mostly by 7-Eleven. Again, this is for EDI pricing files, stuff like the 832 pricing catalog. And one final note here is we suggest whenever possible to create split invoice records at the chain level. That way, whenever you add new customers to that chain, those split invoice records will automatically apply to that customer. You won't have to make new split invoice records each time a new customer is added. Let's talk briefly about the EDI home dashboard. This is a great place to go to start any sort of EDI process. You can just type in EDI home in your universal search bar, and you'll be presented with this screen here. It'll actually start on that left tab, the Upload Mailbox File tab. You can also find your IP address. If any trading partners are asking for your site's IP address, you'll find it under the Upload Mailbox File tab. And as that tab implies, that's also where you can manually import files through the Upload Mailbox File tab. The tab we're looking at here, though, are Exchange Tasks by Type. Let's say, for example, you wanted to look at only your 850 purchase order files that are coming in. Instead of navigating to your Exchange Task table, filtering the functional type to 850, instead what you can do is go to your EDI Home dashboard, just click that EDI Purchase Orders button, and it'll take you directly to your Exchange Task table and show you all of your purchase orders and nothing else. Same goes for those other tabs, right? If you wanted to see just your Exchange Tasks and warnings and errors, which we'll talk about here in a moment, you can click the button, so on and so forth. One other really valuable tab here that I want to highlight as part of EDI Home Dashboard is EDI Billing. So if you're curious of how billing works, what our EDI pricing tier looks like, you can navigate to your EDI Home Dashboard and then go to the EDI Billing tab to see what this quarter's EDI billing statement is and also what your last quarter EDI billing statement was.
And
Perfect.
Nick,
So
oh yeah, I was
go
just gonna
ahead,
say we
Alex.
did have a question that I think kind of revolves around this area as well. Is there a better way to get back to the EDI implementation task than re-entering the form data? Is that where you would use this dashboard?
Yeah, well, this specific home dashboard lives on your specific site, on your distributor site. So you anytime at any point on your site, you can just go to your universal search bar and type in EDI home, and it'll take you to this dashboard.
And so if they are on that EDI implementation task, do they have to
Oh,
re-enter the form data every time or?
no, they can go to their tasks table and see, essentially if you remember the old support task structure, it's the same tasks from before. So you can navigate to your tasks and you can see all the tasks listed there. You won't have to resubmit the implementation form. If you do submit the implementation form again, it's okay. We can merge those tasks. But yeah, you can navigate to your tasks from support.
Great. Thank you.
Got it.
Just to clarify, that is the tasks table in the support site, not
In the
your
support site,
tasks
yes.
table in your ECP site,
Thank you, Pat. Yes.
of course. So let's say you are interested in digging into your EDI warnings and errors. Here are the things to look at. So let's assume we click this button. Let's talk about exchange tasks in a warning status. So what this means is most of the time, this means the exchange task, most of it processed, but not all of it was able to because of very specific things. And those specific things are listed in the memo here. So warnings will provide you the information in the memo to give you the actionable items to fix it for a subsequent exchange task not to be in warning, right? So common issues include just missing data points in general, right? So chain store numbers, chain product numbers, UPCs, and etc. Also, unavailable or discontinued or out of stock products will prompt a warning memo here. And also just load sheets in statuses that don't fit the criteria for that EDI file. So again, the goal, when you are reviewing exchange tasks in a warning status, always look at the memo there. That should give you the actionable next steps. And if you are ever hesitant or curious about what those memos actually mean, feel free to reach out to Encompass Support and we'll help you out there. Another status of exchange tasks is processing. So what the system does going through we'll say the life cycle of an exchange task, starts in a new status, right? And then when the system, when process exchange task runs, it will flip that status to a processing status. And then once that exchange task is fully processed, it will flip to the next status, which is complete or successfully sent if it's outbound. Processing, you typically do not need to worry about. It just means the system is running. The only time you should have any concerns is if something has been stuck in processing for over an hour. So if this does happen, please reach out to support as soon as possible and we can troubleshoot why that exchange task got stuck. Another status to take note of is error. This means none of that file got processed, either inbound or outbound. So if it does if an exchange task does happen to settle in an errored status, you can attempt to resend it, and we'll show you how to resend these files. And if that resend attempt does not work, again, feel free to reach out to support, and we will figure out why that exchange task got in error. Sometimes error exchange tasks will also give meaningful memos, but we can't always know exactly why immediately. So that's why the memo is not always there for error exchange tasks. So these are kind of more generic explanations about the statuses of exchange tasks. I'm going to toss it back to Nick to talk about more specific ones here.
There was actually a couple questions I want to cover real quick, some really good ones. First off, the question was asked, the implementation request form, asks for our ECP customer ISA qualifier / ID value, but isn't that set by Encompass? Or do we have a standard value we use for all trading partner configurations? Really good question, David. This is probably the single most question we get related to the form. I'm really glad you brought it up. So if the trading partner has not already told you what the value should be, what the ID should be, your business is free to choose whatever value you see fit. There is no like formula that Encompass uses. There is no like table that we reference in terms of setting your business's ID, right? That's why we commonly see stuff like, let's say for Pioneer Distributing, we'll set the qualifier to be ZZ. You've probably seen that a lot, ZZ. The only thing ZZ means is that this value that we're about to, the ID value is a mutually defined value. That simply just means that I pick the value and the trading partner agrees that that is going to be the ID for our business. So I'd say you'll see a lot of times ZZ is the qualifier and then Pioneer Dist as the ID, right? Or Savannah Dist, or whatever your business is. It could also be a phone number, right? This is somewhat of a common one. Like let's say your business's phone number, you can use the qualifier 12, right? By using the qualifier 12, that tells the system, okay, the ID value is going to be a phone number, right? And then you can put in your business's phone number. Ultimately, the ID is in the vast majority of situations chosen by you, and it could be effectively whatever you want it to be, right? You can put ZZ and then put, your daughter's name, right? As an example, it could be quite literally whatever you want. Now, there are exceptions, right? Fintech is a really good example, right? Almost everyone trades with fintech. Fintech will tell you what the ID should be, right? They call it their fintech ID, right? That's also your ISA ID. So there are situations where the trading partner themselves will tell you what your ISA ID should be, but fintech is one of the only ones that'll kind of dictate that. Another one is like GXS, right? UFF, they'll tell you like, and that's usually tied to your wholesaler ID. They'll say like, hey, your ID, your wholesaler ID, this is your ISA ID, the distributor ID, or the trading partner's ID, right? That's their ID. But the vast majority of situations, you can pick whatever ID you see fit for your business. If you're ever curious as a kind of related to this, if you're ever curious what the trading partner's ID should be and they haven't told you what it is, there's actually a table on your site called Trading Partner Alias where we store those IDs. So if you ever want to see, okay, what's 7-Eleven's ISA ID? What's Walmart's ISA ID? You can go to Trading Partner Alias and look up Walmart and see their IDs listed there. Another question was asked, how do you eliminate the retailer from ordering a discontinued item to reduce the warnings? So in terms of from an EDI perspective, really the only answer is telling them to stop ordering that product, right? Because we're going to ingest that file, we're going to import the file in the state that it's currently in, right? If that file contains that discontinued product, there's really no way for the system to ignore that product when we process the file, right? We process the entire file, and when we get to that discontinued product, we'll generate that memo to say, this product is discontinued. So if you ever want that to stop, you simply have to ask them, hey, stop ordering that product, it's discontinued. Another question was asked. Currently, we have Publix ordering discontinued, or okay, that's never mind. That's a follow-up to that. But yeah, so in this case, you would simply talk to your Publix rep and say like, hey, I've noticed you've ordered this same product multiple times. It's discontinued. We ask you to stop ordering that product, or and we'll let you know if that product ever comes back into stock. Great questions. Thanks, guys. Okay, moving on. So Pat just talked about, what is a warning, what is a processing, what is an error status for an exchange task. Let's look at some specific examples now. What we have here are two different exchange tasks, one in warning, one in error. And this is specific to 850 purchase orders. So these are some likely warnings and errors you'll come across during the day. So an example number one in the top right, that is an 850 that was received from 7-Eleven. Pat touched on this briefly. We just talked about it, but this memo is saying, hey, all the other products in the file, we were able to place on an invoice and generate except for this one product, right? So they try to order the 7-Eleven product. Inventory is discontinued. We cannot add it to the product. So we tell you what is the chain product number, right? What's the value that 7-Eleven used to try to look up that product in your system? They also give you the UPC value. So we try to give you as much information to say, not only is this product discontinued, but these are the actual ID values that 7-Eleven used to look up that product as well, right? Let's say, for example, the warning instead said, retailer or customer is not allocated to receive this product. But let's say they actually should be allocated or authorized to receive this product. What you can do is actually authorize them to receive the product, re-import that file, and that product will then be added to the invoice. So there's ways in which you can actively address these exchange tasks, make the correction, re-import the file, and then have it fully process. Another common 850 purchase order exchange task status is error, and it's rejected, right? That means, hey, there's a fundamental flaw in the file that prevented us from processing the file. And so it's effectively rejected. In this case, this is a Walmart purchase order file, right? And what the error is saying is there were no accepted items from the file. The reason for that is because we couldn't determine a customer ID, right? So the file contains that GLN value, that global location number value. That's the value Walmart uses to look up their individual Walmart retail locations. When your system received this file, we searched the entire customers table, and we could not actually find a customer that matched that global location number value. So since we couldn't find a matching customer, the system was not able to generate an invoice. Therefore, that file is rejected. So unlike the warning status where, hey, we could find the customer, there was at least one product that we could add to an invoice, so we generated the invoice. With an error instead, hey, we couldn't even generate an invoice at all because we couldn't locate the customer, so we were rejecting this file. Now, again, just like in the warning example, let's say you find the customer that that invoice should have belonged to, and you add this global location number value to that customer. You can then re-import that file. There's a button at the top middle of every exchange task that says re-import file. You can click that button. It'll re-import then successfully that point and generate the invoice and knock that exchange task out of that rejected error status. Let's look at some 810 post-delivery errors. Example number one, the top right, that's from DSD Partners. Again, these are outbound files, so the export failed in this case. Now, why did the export fail, right? This is interesting. It's an outbound file. Why would an EDI file fail to send from your own site? Well, as the memo describes here, there was a translation error. Now, again, this gets a little technical. That N104 simply means it's the specific position. It's like the longitude and latitude within the file. It's the N1 segment. It's position 4. So we find that specific spot in the file, and we know for this specific map that that field requires the chain store number value, right? We know ahead of time, even if that file was able to be sent to DSD partners, they would have rejected the file. Because in their system, they say, hey, we need a change store number value. We need to know which specific, in this case, Dollar General location that this invoice belongs to. So rather than allowing that file to be sent and then DSD partners rejecting the file later and then having to go through that process again, instead what we say is like, hey, we know this is a required field by the trading partner. So if it's not in the file, let's just fail the file out, reject it, and then we'll tell you exactly why, right? So we tell you here, this specific customer, so customer 77, is missing a chain store number value, right? So then you can go to that customer record, add in the chain store number value. We tell you these specific invoices need to be resent, right? That's what would have been originally sent in that 810 file, but because it was rejected, you now need to resend it. So we tell you the specific location in the file that's missing the data, what data specifically is missing, and the customer that was impacted and the invoices that were impacted. We give you all that information in the memo. Similar example in the bottom right. This one, though, is specific for vendor number. So I chose this one specific to look at the UFF file format, again, the universal flat file. You can see here the translation error gives us a different type of location, right? Instead of using the N1 segment, they use these numbered segments, 10, 20, 30. So in this case, it's segment 10, it's that first line in the file, position 209, so pretty far in that line. And we say like, hey, vendor number is missing, right? We know the trading partner requires a vendor number. So since it's not in the file, we'll reject it, right? And those vendor numbers can be placed either at split invoices dot vendor number, right? If that field is null, then we'll look at AR accounts. So just a reminder, those are the two places we store vendor number, split invoice, AR account. Once a vendor number is in one of those two fields, you can then reprocess that invoice and manually resend that, and that'll allow then the 810 to be sent successfully. All right, so resending an EDI file, what does that process look like? So what you're looking at here is the invoice resend dashboard. So if you were to type in invoice resend in your universal search bar at the top, you'll see this dashboard. And what this dashboard is, it's effectively just lying on top of the invoices table. Now, the left-hand side is the full instructions. We're not going to go into the instructions right now. You can read it whenever you need to use it. What I do want to highlight, though, are the actual EDI statuses that are needed to resend a specific type of EDI document. Since different documents require different conditions, different load sheet statuses, and different functional types, we require different EDI statuses in order to resend them. For example, let's say Publix didn't receive an 894 pre-delivery notice, and they said like, hey, in order for us to pay this invoice, you need to send us an 894, right? Publix is one of those rare trading partners that pays directly off of the 894. You can find the invoice in question on your invoices table, edit the edit the EDI status field, set that field to resend pre-delivery notice, and that's all you need to do. And you can see through the list that different types of EDI documents have different resend EDI statuses depending on, again, the type of EDI document you want to resend. What does that look like very basically? You can see here we have the same invoice at the top. It's the current status of the invoice, right? We see that post-delivery sent. And again, when you view the EDI status, that's telling you what is the latest file to have been sent, right? In this case, 7-Eleven, right? This invoice could have also sent an ASN, but an ASN is earlier in the sequence, right? You deliver your product, then you come back to the warehouse and send your post delivery. But let's say, for example, 7-Eleven said, hey, we didn't get this invoice for whatever reason, it got rejected by our system. Make this correction and then resend the invoice. The only thing you have to do is find your invoice in the system, update your EDI status to resend post delivery, as you see in the bottom right-hand corner. That's all you need to do. The next time that API executes against the generate outbound EDI invoices API, that will automatically send your invoice once you've set it to resend post delivery.
And Nick, we did get a question come in about that real
Yes.
quickly. What permission is needed to access that dashboard and also to actually change the invoice status to resend invoice?
Should just be your standard customer user permission. I don't believe you have to be a power user. You it's a low permission status, right? If you ever cannot access the invoice dashboard, invoice resend dashboard, or unable to edit an invoice EDI status, and you feel like you should, definitely submit a Zendesk support ticket. But again, that's a pretty low level permission level there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Just confirmed it's no permission is needed. You just need to add a dashboard role. So
Even
if
lower
you are
level.
unable to view it, yeah, have your IT manager or whoever's responsible for those just add that dashboard to your roles, and you can easily access it.
Awesome. Thank you, Pat.
Mm-hmm. All right, we've reached the end. So key takeaways that we want y'all to have from this is that Encompass will handle new EDI setups with new trading partners. So that form that we keep hitting on, feel free to fill that out anytime you're dealing with a new retailer or trading partner, and we'll get you going on the right track there. Monitor your exchange tasks and set up alerts if needed. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong and a lot of things to configure. And so keeping an eye on those warnings and errors and the memos helps keep your site clean, but also keep your business running smoothly and efficiently. And then lastly, user resources, right? We got Bev, our AI chatbot, who's getting smarter and smarter every day. We got help resources, and always feel free to reach out to Encompass Support where we can help you out and solve your problems. So thank you for joining, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Yeah, and we will leave this time open for just a quick Q&A. We do have a few minutes left over. While we do see any questions come through, I wanted to thank Nick and Pat again for presenting today. It was great. There is a survey that will be sent out to everybody right after I end this. We really appreciate your feedback, so please take it if you do have some time. If not, it will also be sent over in an email. So again, if you have time later on, please take that for us. This session will be uploaded in the recording archive by end of day today, so please look for it there. And let's see here. Yep, and with that one, Cheryl, I did just say that this recording will be updated by end of day here in the recording archive. So give it a little bit for it to upload, and then I'll get it in there for you.
Yeah, definitely let us know too if you want us to do more EDI webinars, even, do a deeper dive beyond just EDI basics. We'd be happy to.
Awesome. And I'm not seeing any immediate questions. So again, with that, go ahead and take that survey. Let us know if you have any other ideas that you want. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks again, Nick and Pat.
Thanks,
Thanks all.
everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.